Also, just a couple of pointers from our lesson last week. Your posture is not looking too bad. Don't worry too much about the roundness of the back there. It happens to all of us. Maybe what you could do is just bend over a fraction more. We pretty much want that line there just to cut the bottom of your belt and not the top of your belt. So you can see that tiger on the opposite side, it's just cutting the bottom of his belt. But that also is not a train smash. We've got some players that are standing taller these days, and it works for them. So I think your posture is looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit of bend in the knees just to give them a little bit more athletic look wouldn't be a bad idea. When we take the club back, the first move to me still looks like you're turning a little bit. See, the buttons of your shirt are turning, whereas and maybe you can't look at the buttons, maybe you should look at the right shoulder. So your right shoulder looks like it's moving behind you, whereas on the takeaway the right shoulder should be moving a little bit more up. So when you get round about here to the 9 o'clock position, the shaft is quite flat. This is called flat because the shaft is underneath your right forearm. Around about in this position, we still want the shaft to be above your right forearm. And this then becomes this move where the shaft now is pointing right of target and your elbow is a little bit high and your left hip is tilting down, so that creates a bit of space between your knees there. And all that's telling me is that your weight is in your left side, in your left hip, and not on the outside of your right foot. And then again, that culminates in the first move of the downswing, which is an over the top, or the arm swinging left instead of the arm swinging to the right hand side, or actually to the target, should we say. And then from there you've got to jump up to create a little bit of space, and then your left elbow chicken wings out on the other side. So just if we look at it and try not to get too complicated with it, we still need to make sure the shaft stays a little bit more, or your arms stay a little bit more in front of you here. And then we're going to try and get the shaft to point a little bit more this way at the top of the backswing. So that image I gave you of a waiter carrying a tray and your right hand being a little bit more pointed to the sky, or your right palm being a little bit more pointed to the sky, is what's going to draw the weight away from your left hip and your left leg and get it a lot more on the outside of your right heel. And then automatically from there, that move will be better. Because if we can just get that move to improve, we should be fine. I did tell you in your lessons, you're not in bad company. A lot of really good players did point the shaft to the right at the top of the backswing. If you just give me a few minutes, I can find one for you. Probably the greatest golfer ever. Just really find the right video. Let's try this one here. Okay, so again the back's a little bit more rounded because it's an older Jack Nicklaus here. And also you can see that the arms are swinging inside and the elbows going up. And I think in his younger days he was a bit more supple, so the shaft would probably be pointing a lot more here. But one big difference between what you do on the downswing and what Jack Nicklaus did on the downswing is he moves his elbow a lot faster than his hands. So from this position here, if I had to trace the movements of his hands and the movements of his elbow, is the elbow comes down a lot faster and the hands kind of stay behind. whereas I think you can see very clearly that coming down your hands move a lot faster than your elbow. So even if you got to this position here and you didn't get to it that well, you could still save it by just making sure you kind of zip your elbow down first and not your hands, because again we want the arms to swing more towards the target. But we'll work on it again tomorrow, and I hope that maybe just showing you these videos and the differences between the two, that it'll help you a little bit. Again, don't worry too much about the posture here. If you just put a bit of spring in your legs, you'll be looking a lot better. See you tomorrow.